halls of confinement. What a dark place. And when I say dark, I mean the inmates are in there for a reason. They are disciplinary problems, and they are causing trouble. They've hurt someone on the compound, and they don't stop when they get in confinement either. Call it whatever you want. I call it confinement. I always have. Maybe I'm old school, but that's what it is. We have confinement officers in our prisons here in Florida. Now, these inmates not only will hurt each other, but many of them will hurt the officers working in that dorm. They save feces, some of them, in cups. They save urine in cups. And they will throw it on officers when they walk by. These are just the type of inmates that have no control, don't seem to get along in society on the street, or they wouldn't be in prison in the first place. And then when they're in prison, they can't even get along with the prison society. They always have to be up to something, always have to be fighting or getting into a gang, wanting to hurt somebody, wanting to hurt correctional officers. These are some tough characters to have to deal with for an entire shift. And officers have to be on the ball 100% of their shift, head on a swivel the entire shift. Now, you should always be that way, no matter where you work in the prison. But I'm telling you, when you're in confinement, just because they're separated and in single cells, sometimes two to a cell, you have to be careful when you open those cell doors to take them out, or when you do med pass with the nurse. You know, when that food slot is very dangerous in itself. Nurses have had their hands cut by inmates with razor blades, grabbed by inmates when they're passing the medications to the inmates. And lots of times you'll have some very troublesome inmates. And I'll tell you a little story, true story. Somebody else has probably done this as well. Now, this is not correct. This can get you terminated from your job. But these two inmates were the worst of all the inmates in confinement. So, what the officers planned was, on night shift, they would get a couple of convicts. Now, why do I call them convicts? Well, I'm old school. We always felt there was a difference between a convict and an inmate. Convicts were not as much trouble. They did what they're supposed to do, followed the rules, cleaned up when they were supposed to, did what they were supposed to do, because they've been in and out of the prison system for so long. They've just gotten older and decided it's not worth acting crazy. And then you have your inmates, and then if you go to juvenile, which I'm not going to talk about today, you know, they're jits. There's another name for them. But anyway, these two inmates were just causing trouble and disrupting the dorm and getting the other inmates in confinement riled up and fired up to where they were banging on the cell bars, you know, throwing things, making a mess, trying to flood their cells. So they decided they would fix that problem, and they got a couple of old-time convicts who were built, you know, the guys out on the weight pile that were lifting 500-600 pounds or more. But they never caused a problem. They never bothered the correctional officers, and they did their thing because they knew that living that style in prison was much better than creating chaos and violence and riots. Well, they brought them in about 1 in the morning, and the sergeant and the officers, sergeant said, roll 7 and roll 10. And they rolled the cell doors open while the inmates were sleeping at 1 in the morning. And these two big convicts, one went in one cell, one went in the other. Shut them. They shut the cell doors. True story, folks. And they beat the heck out of these inmates. I mean, beat them bad. So then they get him out of the cell, take him down to the chow hall for inmates. They had pulled the inmate cook out of the dorm. Fix these boys up what they want there. Make them a nice plate. And they ate good. They got some extra blankets on the way back to the dorm. And it was over, right? Well, almost. It continued into a different venue than the officers wanted. So then, the next morning, the nurses go around for med pass. They can't get these two inmates up. The nurse said they don't look right. Called for another officer, so there's two officers, told the nurse to get back. Oh my gosh, they went in there. These guys were beat bad. How do I know? Because I got all the photos from medical because I was assigned the investigation. Okay, now, it's not right, folks. It's a criminal act. No matter how much anybody thinks these guys deserved it, we probably know that they never would pull that shit again, right? But anyway, I investigated and as without going through the whole thing, I ended up finding out which two inmates were the hitmen. One of them had just gotten released and he was already in St. Petersburg, Florida, and the other was at the prison. The one at the prison wouldn't talk. He wouldn't give a statement. But the one in St. Petersburg was on probation. And you know one of your rules of probation, I was a probation officer also, a felony probation officer at one time. And you must tell the truth, and if you're caught lying, that is a violation of probation. Okay? So I had his probation officer call him in, and I didn't say that I was going to be there, and I was in the another office in the probation and parole in St. Petersburg, Florida. He came in, probation officer brought him to me. I said, thank you, have a seat. I had the violations of probation in front of him. I said, look, I don't want anything but the truth. No extra, no less, no sugarcoating. I just want the truth. You're on probation. You're a free man. Don't mess up your life over what happened at that prison. Well, he wrote a full affidavit out about what happened, signed it. And then I went to the prison. Of course, I had his affidavit. I had all the medical records. Now, folks, we know that for criminal charges, no state attorney is going to charge any officers for a crime with an inmate witness. You have to have more evidence. You have to have some officer witnesses or some civilian staff witnesses. So in the end, one officer admitted and everybody else denied. So you have an officer that admitted it happened, you have an inmate, you have injuries. So the state attorney decided let the prison administration handle it, and the warden of that prison terminated a sergeant and two officers. The moral of the story is, why do that? Why ruin your career? Oh, is it effective? It might be very effective, but why? It's a criminal act. Why do it? Folks, if any of you out there ever have somebody in uniform that wants to do a cell pop and let the inmates in to beat up another inmate, stop them. Stop them. Take them to the corner. Say, look, in the end, this is going to be bad for all of us. We're all either going to be fired or get criminal charges. Look, just telling these stories to protect you folks. No matter how bad it gets, no matter how angry you get at these inmates, you just got to keep your cool. Yeah, I know they're going to throw feces on us. I know they're going to throw urine on us. I know they're going to try to hit us when they can. But we have to be the stronger, and we have to let the pen sometimes take our action for us. And we will fight to seek criminal charges on these inmates who throw urine at you or hit you, because the state attorneys need to press charges on every inmate who assaults an officer with liquids or with bodily harm. No questions asked. There shouldn't even be a reason why they wouldn't prosecute. We need to get them on the ball to back up the correctional officers, and we won't need these cell pops. And by the way, if you're being hit by an inmate and you take them down to the ground, you're going to take them down to the ground to protect you. If they hit their head, I'm sorry. But I'm not saying that we will try to make them hit their head. There's going to be some people see this that aren't in corrections. They're going to think I'm just the worst dude in the world. But it's the truth. Inmates will kill you. If I'm being attacked on the street by anybody who's got me by my throat or trying to hit me, I'm going to take them down as hard as I can. I'm going to protect me. We're going to protect us. Same thing in there. So don't act like that's abuse when an inmate attacks you and we take them down to the ground. That's not abuse. That's protecting ourselves. Anyway, there's a story. It's true. Don't do that. Do it the right way. Thanks a lot. Gary York, True Prison Stories.